And the reason why that works is because usually you're matching and identifying what it is that that person loves to do to that lane so they can, of course, hit it to the highest level. Most of your time is spent by doing something that you're supposed to love to do, okay? And if you're not hitting self-actualization within it, it's unfulfilling.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only difference between my production and your production. I was in self-actualization, you were in the origination cycle.
It's impossible because you have nothing to compare it to.
Right.
And the industry doesn't provide this. And I experienced that in only 5 years. I had probably upwards of 30 to 40 individuals in my door that worked for me at one point. And it was just like a carousel.
Matt Weaver, the #1 mortgage originator in the United States for most loans closed in 2023 and #1 in the state of Florida from 2020 to present, has spent over 27 years mastering the purchase market, earning more than 16 #1 titles across his career. Max Fisch, 2024's #1 originator in the United States under 30 and #2 in the state of Florida, achieved those titles within just 5 years of entering the mortgage industry, compressing decades of growth into a few extraordinary years. Collectively, they've helped more than 40,000 families purchase their first home. Now partners and looking to improve the industry on a national scale, Matt and Max share their winning formula, team structure, and systems with originators who want to scale from elite to extraordinary levels.
So Matt, let's talk about self-actualization today. What do you talk to me about it?
Self-actualization, what does it mean?
Mhm.
Well, self-actualization, what that means, in my opinion, is it's when someone hits their peak performance. It's when someone is doing what it is that typically they love to do, and they're actually hit their peak performance in doing it. That's self-actualization. At least that's probably the definition. If you looked it up online, that would be the definition, hitting your peak performance. Here's the challenge, Max, is that individuals in the origination business rarely hit self-actualization. And it's sad. It's sad. You know, when you think about it, I have the good fortune of saying that I'm hitting, now I never want to say 100% because there's always room to grow.
Sure.
But I am in the space of hitting my self-actualization every single day and have been doing so for over a decade. Let me define that a little bit more in detail. So the reason I can say that is because I'm doing the part of the origination cycle that I love. And if you're doing the part that you love, then you can end up doing it to an extraordinary level, to the highest level, ideally, hitting self-actualization. But the typical originator, sadly, and I say this, doesn't really hit self-actualization because they're in the origination cycle. Let's talk about the origination cycle for just a moment. Typical originator has to do prospecting. They have to meet with real estate agents. They have to then take applications. They gather documents. They're doing pre-approvals. They're doing home buyer consultations. They're working with underwriters and processes. They're doing so many different parts of the cycle is what I call it, which all those other parts that they're not necessarily in love with hold them down from hitting self-actualization. It's the reason why we call it Originate for Life, to give the individual life. Life, to me, is doing what you want to do to the highest level. That's life. That's living, in my opinion, when it comes to work. So I pinch myself every day. I don't come into the office, or we'll say come to work, as if it was just, someone normal coming to work, where it's like, oh gosh, here it is, a Monday. I pinch myself every day because I'm doing the part that I love to do. I mean, I can't imagine. Watch, if you said to me, Matt, can you please retire today? We'll give you a check to retire. I couldn't take it. I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't imagine doing that. And it's because I'm living in self-actualization.
Yeah, so it's funny, when we first met, I don't know if you remember this, you talked to me about self-actualization. And I remember leaving that meeting and, the confident, dare I say, cocky side of me comes out. And I start thinking, well, what does he mean I haven't reached self-actualization? I've accomplished X and I've accomplished Y and da-da-da-da and et cetera, et cetera. But what's interesting is, would you say that you can come to a conclusion and say, if you're caught in the origination cycle, that you can't actually reach self-actualization? Like, it's impossible.
I would say it's 100% impossible.
Yeah.
Because all of the parts and pieces that are tethering you down, won't allow you to hit self-actualization and actually won't allow you to hit high levels of origination, should that be the desirability that someone wants. As an example, the parts that I love to do, I am a rainmaker. It's something that I have a knack for. It's something I have a passion for. I love going out and speaking with agents and sharing our system and sharing our value propositions, what we do differently, helping them sell real estate just a little more. We do 80 to 100 seminars a year. That's my true passion. So for me, that's self-actualization. When we look at our team structure, okay, the Matt Weaver team structure, you look at, there's all the various lanes within the structure that allow originators to plug into a specific lane so they can do that specific lane that they love to an extraordinary level, hitting self-actualization. So for example, we have our lane, which is advisors. And advisors are ones that are, of course, doing applications and helping pre-approve buyers and doing home buyer consultations and mastering consultations. And that's all they do. They're not out rainmaking. They're not out doing one-on-one appointments because that's not necessarily their passion. Their passion is troubleshooting with each home buyer, showing them what it takes to buy, educating them, and that's allowing them to do it to a high level, and they're hitting their self-actualization. See, here's the challenge. When you're trying to build a team structure, and it doesn't matter whether it's real estate or mortgage, but we're going to stay to mortgage because that's the industry, of course, that we're in.
Sure.
When your team members are not hitting self-actualization, they know it. They feel it right here. They go home unsatisfied.
So you just can't pinpoint what it is.
They can't pinpoint what it is, but it'll rear its head.
Yeah.
And that's what we always want to get ahead of. So when you take a look at a team structure, the ideal team structure is everyone has their position within the team and doing that particular position to the highest level. And the reason why that works is because usually you're matching and identifying what it is that that person loves to do to that lane so they can, of course, hit it to the highest level.
Yep.
But if they're crossing lanes, okay, I always say that the Matt Weaver team lives in a black and white world. Okay, there's no gray. Gray equals confusion. Okay, most structures live in gray. Most originators live in gray. They're doing a little over here, a little over there. They go home, they're miserable, they're not happy, they don't feel satisfied, and they're not hitting self-actualization, which I have to say, more the sensitive side of me, and I mean it sincerely, is that it's sad. It's sad. We talk about life is not a dress rehearsal. You get one time here on earth, okay? And most of your time is spent by doing something that you're supposed to love to do, okay? And if you're not hitting self-actualization within it, it's unfulfilling.
Yeah. And there's going to be a lot of people listening to this and we always talk about you don't know what you don't know, right? And there's going to be people that are listening to this that say to themselves, well, I feel like I am reaching peak performance. I'm good at all of the lanes in the origination cycle. And to be honest with you, I was one of them.
Right.
I thought that I was peaking in all of these different areas. Oh, maybe I was made differently and I'm just good at marketing, as good as marketing as I am at taking applications and prospecting and all of these things. But the reality is if you are weighing and looking and analyzing your success based off of a production level or an income stream coming in, it's impossible because you have nothing to compare it to.
Right.
And the industry doesn't provide this.
Correct.
So the reality is as originators, unless you have something to compare your business to, then you can't really make that assessment.
Correct.
And that's an interesting thought because as good as you think you are at all of these different lanes, you would be better. And I can say this with 100% fact because I just did this. We talked about how we came together and what we're doing it for, but I can say with 100% fact that you would be better if you chose the one lane that you actually love, right? Not just because you're good at it, but that you actually love and you stuck to that, how much higher you can scale and you can grow in this business. And in your originations, if you just focus on that one lane, because it will say, just like you just said, it's 100% impossible. I will say that you cannot reach that level of self-actualization and peak performance unless you hone in on the one thing you're good at. And our industry as a whole, it's not catered to that.
Right.
Meaning you come into this business as a young individual, you almost think that it's just par for the course to do a million different things, which it is typically.
Right.
But what we've been able to build here and what you've been able to build over these years and we're continuing to build together is an opportunity to reach that peak performance, to hone in on one thing, to stay in your lane and to scale at an extraordinary level. And I just think that, we want to use some of that strong terminology because I think it's so important for originators to hear and understand that it is possible to reach that in this industry. You just have to look in the right places, and the right places is this podcast.
Well, think about it. That's exactly right. Think about it from this perspective. You were closing close to 200 million in loan originations a year. Okay, I was closing over 500 million in loan originations per year.
Yeah.
The difference between your practice then and what I was doing is staying in that single lane, hitting self-actualization.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the only difference between my production and your production. I was in self-actualization. You were in the origination cycle. So as we came together now, we are together now. Okay, you're seeing how fast you're able to propel even quicker because you're in that single lane of focus.
Yeah, it's just about understanding that's even possible to do.
Yeah.
You earlier when we were talking, you made a reference to a pizza maker.
Yes.
Share that because I thought it was good and I don't want to butcher it.
Well, if you think about it, originators are not trained to think bigger or to think in scale.
Yeah.
Okay. So I when I was talking to an originator the other day, I said, think about this. If a typical originator opened a pizzeria, okay, the way that they would run it is that they would have the sign and the open sign. They'd run behind the counter. Customer would walk in. Hi, I'd like 2 cheese slices. They'd run in the back, knead the dough, put the sauce on, put the cheese, put it in the oven, go back to the cash register, cash out the customer. The customer would sit down. They'd take the pizza out of the oven. They'd go ahead and deliver it to the table. They would do every single part of the cycle of selling that slice of pizza down to delivering it to the table.
Sure.
But what if an originator said, I'm going to open that pizzeria? And what if I wanted to sell just a few more pizzas? And the way that I plan on doing that is I'm going to get a pizza maker. And then I'm going to get someone who's going to work the cash register. And then I'm going to get a server who's actually going to serve it to the table. Who do you think is going to sell more slices? Who's going to sell more pizzas? And then they might even open 1 or 2 more locations. So what happens with originators is we're stuck with the sole practitioner mindset.
Yeah.
Okay, a sole practitioner mindset. Everything has to be me, 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 which is why they're in all of the lanes. Okay, they have not mastered the fact of delegation. Okay, here we always talk about the fact of this. Okay, when you're a team leader, well, we talk with our F13 members all the time. Okay, we say to our F13 members that more calls should equal more revenue and not more work. I want to repeat that for the great group. More calls should equal more revenue, not more work. And the way you're able to do that as a team leader is you have a structure in place. You have the positions on the court accordingly, and everyone is working within their individual lane to the highest and best use. Okay. So I think it's important for originators, should they want to scale to a high level of production. What's a high level of production? Several hundreds of millions a year, which is possible because you did it.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it today. I'm doing it today. This isn't like, hey, 10 years ago, you know what we used to do?
Yeah.
I'm doing it today. You're doing it today. Okay, and that's what's really unique about what it is that we're sharing with the great group. Okay, because I think a lot of information right now on the internet or podcasts is either A, coming from someone who is not even in the related industry that the originator's in, so they're listening to them, or B, that podcast individual or interviewer or whatever it may be did it 20 years ago.
Yeah.
We need current information.
Yeah. So ready, watch. If there's an originator out there that says to themselves, I could scale my business if I had more time doing X, you're in the wrong lane.
That's right.
If you say that, which I know that, let's take 1,000 originators and ask them if they've said that same exact line in their business before. All 1,000, if they were put to a lie detector test, would tell you yes.
Yes.
Because they find themselves, it's impossible to not find yourself in that position. That's a double negative.
Yeah.
It's impossible to not find yourself in that position when you're required by the industry, by all industry standards, to do a little bit of everything. And so if you find yourself saying, I could scale my business to X if I didn't have to do Y, you're in the wrong lane and you're not reaching that peak performance.
Right.
And then I'll take it a step further. If you're leading people within your organization, within your origination practice, it's so important to make sure that not just you're reaching your peak performance, but that all of those people are reaching their peak performance. And the only way to do that is to identify what all of those people love to do, what the people that work for you, what they're best at doing. And that's how they can reach it. And that's where a culture is birthed.
Right.
And I think it's so important to note that, because you've said, I think you said it to all of us on this podcast in one of the previous episodes, but you've said before that the people that have been with you for over a decade.
Yes.
And that is so unusual in this industry, because there's a lot of fallout and turnover, and people go and try this and they go to a broker, to whatever it is.
Right.
And I experienced that in only 5 years. I had probably upwards of 30 to 40 individuals in my door that worked for me at one point. And it was just like a carousel.
Right.
Of people. And I really couldn't understand why, but it was because they weren't in a lane to where they felt like they were reaching peak performance. So when people get their back put against the wall, they're always going to think the grass is greener.
Right.
And they're going to continue to jump because they're never in a position to scale at a high level in this industry.
Well, you're exactly correct. When you look at our team structure today, the average team member, the average has been with us for over 9 years. Most of the original team members, of which I started with 15 years ago, have been here for 15 years. The reason for that is because they're hitting their peak performance within their specific lane. So we're satisfying that feeling. They're going home feeling satisfied. They're speaking to their spouses satisfied. Is there stress along with it? Of course. But they're hitting their income goals. They're hitting their self-actualization. For other team leaders that are not in a similar structure as to what we're doing, that's when you have that conversation, or they're having those conversations with team members, where the team member says, do you know how much work I do that you're not even aware of? You see? Because what they're doing is they're changing lanes, and they're doing things that perhaps they shouldn't be doing, but they're doing it for the benefit of the team, but the team leader doesn't know that they're doing it. See, in my world, in our world, we don't have those conversations because we know exactly what lane they're in. So they are not doing anything outside of that lane. So the F13 members get the complete blueprint plan of how to build the same team, which, of course, these great originators are doing across the industry. So here's what I would say to an originator that is listening today. That's not part of F13, of course. You can at least start with whiteboarding your process. Okay, take a look at your process from the onset of the referral, from the onset of, hi, I'd like to get pre-approved, all the way through to funding and all the micro steps in between. And when you take a look at all of those steps, now you got to break it down. Which parts do you love to do? Which parts do you not like to do? And when it's a do not like to do, that's your signal for delegation.
Yep.
So you pull out a sheet of paper for me. If you were to draw a line down the middle and write down business development activities on the left, and on the right side, okay, actual origination, punching of the widget. Okay, the right side is going to be blank. The left side is going to be filled, because that's what I love to do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in that same vein, the merging of our teams has highlighted that fact, because what we've shown is it's not necessary, and I don't mean this offensive, right? But the people that have worked with you and on your team structure for so many years, they might love you, they might not. But here's why they're still here, is because they feel fulfilled and they're reaching their peak performance. And now what we've shown is bringing the 20 plus people that came with me and merged alongside the both of us. What we've shown is that fact is true, because now these people that have only been with us for a few months have started to feel that as well. So it has nothing to do, well, maybe it does have a little bit to do. I'll give ourselves a little bit of credit, but it has little to do with who we are as human beings. and more to do with the people that are working with us. Do they feel fulfilled? Are they in the right seats?
Correct.
And so I just think that that's so important, because now what you've shown is that this methodology and way of doing things is it's open to any originator and across the country. I just think that it's not bound to one market or one subset of originators. There's a place and there's a lane for everybody. What that from hi, I'd like to get pre-approved to funding and all the steps in between, processing, taking applications, marketing, whatever it is. There's a lane for everybody. And I just think that is really, really cool to be able to bring that into an industry that otherwise has almost completely forgotten
Right.
about people feeling fulfilled and reaching peak performance. I just think I think that's really cool. So kudos to what you've built, because it's giving life back to originators.
That's right. And kudos to us.